It's time to get nerdy, y'all.
A little bit of gaming history for you.
Something relevant in gaming and discuss our opinions on it.
Should we kick it out of here, or should we kick-start it?
This is the part where you, the listeners, try to stump the hosts.
I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on a podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, lads and lasses of all ages, welcome to the show. It is Tuesday, July 23rd, 2024, and it is time to get nerdy. Welcome to episode 312 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest gaming podcast in the multiverse. I am Maction, and it's an even-numbered episode that I am introing, which means that Mr. Nice Guy is still abroad, having a wild time. But that's okay, because I am joined by a fellow nerd, somebody who loves video games almost as much as they love TTRPGs. I am talking about Metzgirl! Metzgirl, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back. It's always a pleasure, Mac.
Always a delight to have you. So, been up to anything interesting lately? You know, we like to just sort of chat for a couple of minutes before we get to the hour of news, history, trivia, and everything in between.
Oh, well, since I last was on this podcast, I've moved states entirely.
Ooh.
So I'm just, bumming around Minnesota trying to figure out the lay of the land and enjoying all of the lakes. It's amazing.
I'll bet.
Highly recommend it.
As somebody who's moved states not once, not twice, but thrice, not the best time in the world, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, no, moving always sucks. Does not matter how far you're going.
Yeah.
It just isn't fun. But I'm now here and in a house that I own, and there's a lot of it's a steep learning curve, let me put it that way. But the fun stuff, there's like little festivals all around at these little towns, and you can go get your face painted for free because their local chamber of commerce or whomever has sponsored the thing. And yeah, so there's a lot of really cool stuff like that around here that I'm really enjoying, and I'm getting to like hang out with my kids and play the stupid games that they want to play, and just kid things.
Awesome. Well, in the words of Alexis Rose, love that journey for you.
How about you?
It has been a pretty wild past little while. I won't recap everything since the last time you were on, but I'll just say this week's been quite interesting because my spouse officiated a wedding today, this very day.
What?
Yes.
I didn't know they could do that.
Well, it's something that they picked up recently, and I actually have a video, although it was quite windy, so the audio's not so good. But it was a beautiful ceremony, and that was fun. But yesterday, the water pump on the car. Okay, so like 2 weeks ago, the fuel pump on my car goes out, my manual transmission, my Jetta. And so I've got that in the garage. And then I have not yet had the chance to repair that. And so when I find that the water pump on the Toyota is just leaking coolant like a sieve, anyway, it was time for a late night session of fixing a car because it's the only option.
Oh, no.
And on top of everything else, we got a wedding to officiate the next day, so it's not like we can't have it done. So anyway, what I'm saying, everybody, is that last night was full of busted knuckles and barely restrained swearing, and yeah, that is very prominent in my mind right now, which is why I'm excited to chat video games with you, because this is my fun time, my enjoyable time, video games on this show, and tonight with you.
Yay! I'm happy to be a distraction from your troubles, as you are a distraction from mine. So,
amazing.
Yay, podcast, bringing us all together.
Yes. Well then, with no further ado, let's get this show rolling. Metzgirl, I believe you have some news you would like to share with me, and I am always out of the loop, so please hit me with your best shot.
Fire away. Yes.
Nice.
So, big news over at Bethesda Game Studios. I don't know if you've heard, but they have managed to unionize.
Amazing.
They got all their people together, and it's not just like a section, you know, because like sometimes the union is like it's just the writers or it's just the artists or it's just whomever. No. They called it wall-to-wall union. So it's from workers across all the different disciplines and departments. And yeah, they're really working on making sure that they've got a good, solid group and they can come together to negotiate for a better situation. I don't know exactly what they're really aiming for, but it's always a good idea to unionize people because big companies ultimately don't care about their workers, and it is a good thing to be able to stand together to be like, hey, quit laying people off, you jerks.
That's the one. I mean, obviously I don't know either, but like, you know, if you had said, Mac, why do you think that the people at Bethesda have decided to unionize? I'd say, I don't know, maybe it's the past couple of years of nonstop wall-to-wall layoffs.
Yeah. And like, when it comes to businesses, yes, you can lay off so much to like help your business be less unwieldy and be able to like perform better, but you get to a certain point and you can't like continue laying off people and still expect the same amount of functionality out of them. Look, so like if you've noticed a decrease in functionality in Bethesda games, it might have something to do with all the layoffs.
Yeah, look, I'm just saying, we all have that coworker who we know is bringing us down. But it's not the entire team, and it certainly isn't half the entire company that's bringing it down. Now, if just we could get game publishers to stop shutting down a whole, studio, that would be amazing. Yeah. Next step.
Yeah, well, speaking of game studios, the Player First Games, which is most well known for their multiverses, which is they have all of the different IPs coming together to fight. Similar to, oh gosh, what's the name of it? Shoot. Smash Brothers. There we go. In Nintendo. Mm-hmm. Similar to Smash Brothers, the multiverses is a multi-universal game that pulls all these different characters together. Like Samurai Jack is going to be one of their new people coming into the game. Huh. And that's from, Nickelodeon, right? Back in the day? Yeah, Nicktoons. So. Or not Nicktoons, but Nickelodeon. And so anyway, they are being purchased by Warner Brother Games, which, to be perfectly honest, I did not realize was a game studio.
Yeah, I almost thought that Warner Brother Games, I figured for sure that was something that had closed its doors, honestly.
Right?
But then again, like I said, I'm always out of the loop, so...
That's fair. I don't usually pay attention too much to, like, the different game studios because they're always shifting, it feels like. That, like, yeah, Warner Brother Games now owns Player First Games, but maybe they'll be traded off to someone else, It happens all the time, but...
Metzgirl, as somebody who has tried to go down the rabbit hole of figuring out exactly which studios are owned by which company and such,
it's a huge shell game and it's very confusing. So I just generally don't normally pay attention to that, but the Player First Games is like a smaller studio that seems to have been really focused on, well, players. And I'm a little concerned because every time, somebody gets bought out, there's always that like, what are they gonna do? But so far it seems to be going well. Hopefully it stays that way.
I hope so. Especially with I hope the philosophy matches the title of the studio. But yeah, right? We need a bit more player first.
Yeah, because I don't know about you, but I've been looking for couch co-op games recently because I have a 11, soon to be 12-year-old, and he likes to play games with us, which is great. However, so many of the games he wants to play, for instance, his newest obsession game is Grounded, and that game is intended to be multiplayer, but it is not couch co-op. Minor vent aside. But yeah, in other news, Assassin's Creed apparently has been making Japan a little bit nervous because they have their new Assassin's Creed Shadows coming out, right? and it is based in feudal Japan. And they're treating it like every other Assassin's Creed. Like, yeah, it's got the basis, it's got like this is what society was like, but the people that you're playing and like the things that happen aren't real. It's all fiction.
Mm-hmm.
It's not actually telling you the story of feudal Japan. And it sounds like they made some missteps in marketing, and some Japanese people were very concerned, to the point that they wrote a 4-page apology tweet in both English and Japanese to be like, hey, we're not trying to say that Japan did these things or that this stuff happened. It's fiction. Sorry. They're kind of smoothing over those rough waters and apologizing for what I'm not really sure. But knowing how Enzio treated Italy back in whatever year he was actually supposed to be running around in, yeah, I can understand.
Yeah, I'll bet. Now, I've never played an Assassin's Creed. However, I do know you kill a lot of folk and dive off of buildings, and that's all fun.
And the storylines are usually involving, like, oh, there's this, like, a big bad guy, right? You have to have a big bad guy in a video game. That's just the way these things work.
That's exactly where I was going to go.
Hopefully the nice little apology letter explaining how they do things will soothe it over, but, you know, I get it.
Hey, success de scandale.
And for the final bit of news, we have butts on controllers now. Did you know this?
I had heard, I believe a certain Ishmobile had flouted this in my face. Yeah, this is a tie-in for the new Wolverine Deadpool movie, right?
Right. So they showed the Deadpool one, like, probably last week or the week before. Now there's also a Wolverine one. So, you know, depending on whose butt you like better.
Now, I'm just a simple country lawyer. But I can't imagine that these butts are, shall we say, ergonomic on the controllers.
Well, it's on the backside, obviously, because where else would you put a butt?
Yeah.
But it's just hilarious that it matches the vibe, right, of the whole movie in general. So, but anyway.
Well, I do know a few controller collectors out there, and I suspect that they will be snatching up these butts.
Yeah, I can't imagine that they're actually going to be like a huge thing that people will want to play with frequently, but I don't know. Maybe they're super comfy.
Who knows?
Who knows? They are rumored to be bringing back the Xbox Game Pass for families.
Interesting.
It's a major rumor right now. It used to be, for a very short time, you could get a family Game Pass for like $25, and you could cover, I think, up to 4, I don't remember the details of it, but like up to 4 people, and you could all have the Game Pass. But they took that away because money. And so they're redoing all of the Xbox game things because they're trying to get more money, more subscribers, more everything, of course. And yeah, so like they've redone it. They're dropping the console only, it sounds like, and like if you currently have it and you keep it going, you're fine, but otherwise it's going away. But I don't know, it's very confusing that they've got all these different levels now.
Yeah, it's, well, I'll have more to say on this later, I think, but I'm glad.
Okay. But
I appreciate you keeping me in the loop.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Metzgirl, for the news. That's a lot of good stuff, and a lot of stuff for us to look forward to.
Indeed.
Well, now that we've taken a look at what's going on right now, why don't we take a little look into the past with some video game history?
That sounds delightful.
We had one game that came out, or a set of games, rather, back this week, today actually, in 2018, the Mega Man X Legacy Collection.
Yes.
Yeah, for all those modern things. Now, obviously, this is a case for rejoicing for Lom, as well as anybody else who's a fan of the Mega Man X series. I don't have anything against it, personally. I'm just more a classic man, as you know. But for those of us, especially Lom, who can't be here to advocate for himself in this moment, Mega Man X Legacy Collection, I see you, Lom. I know, Mr. Nice Guy, and it's there. But there's a definitely much more exciting and more important thing to talk about today, and that is video game achievements. So I know that we do not coordinate this show beforehand. We don't really, throw out what we're going to do there. So I'm putting you a bit on the spot here. But I want to ask you to think about what your most coveted video game achievement is, or what you want to have but you don't have, or what you are most proud of getting. And for my part, I am especially thrilled by the achievement for the Stanley Parable of not playing the game for 7 years. An absolutely ridiculous achievement, but one that I intend on getting this very evening. But not all achievements are ridiculous and surreal like that. Some of them are a lot more serious. And to that end, Metzgirl, any achievements in your games that you're particularly proud of?
I love video games, but I'm not good at video games.
Same, girl. Same.
Probably the Master Angler one in Stardew Valley, because, I am absolutely terrible at fishing. And, or at least I started off not being able to fish at all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That mini fishing game just made me so angry. And eventually I figured it out and learned how to, level my fishing faster so that I wasn't stuck on those lower levels and just frustrated. By the time I finally caught that last legendary, I think it was the angler in the river. By the time I finally caught that, I was just celebrating in my chair, and then the little achievement thingy popped up and I was like, woo!
Amazing. I'm pretty sure I still don't have Master Angler from Stardew. But yeah, sometimes achievements give you a huge sense of accomplishment, and they're cherished. In some sense, I have an achievement that I've made certain perlers for myself to adorn my walls when I've completed a game, for those games that didn't have achievements, that were made, say, I don't know, in the late 80s or what have you, when I, became particularly interested in the video games.
Yes.
Achievements in video games kind of got started in the early 80s, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so if we go back to the year 1981.
Okay.
Activision, at the time, was a third-party developer for the Atari. And that is a whole subject in and of itself, because it was a whole big to-do in order to be a third-party developer. We'll talk about that sometime later for legalese, actually, because there was fallout. But in 81, they released a game called Freeway. And what this game was it was basically a version of Frogger, for the Atari 2600, except for you were a chicken crossing the road. And we will answer in but a few moments the eternal question of why the chicken crossed the road.
Mm-hmm.
If you scored, and I'm just going to send you, Metzgirl, I'm going to send you a link here.
Okay.
This is to one of the page of the manual. This is page 4 of the manual. And if you wouldn't mind reading the box labeled, join the Activision Save the Chicken Foundation.
Okay, I want to join this. Activision wants to recognize your traffic dodging achievements. So, if you're successful in guiding your chicken through the traffic at least 20 times in either Game 3 or Game 7, you can become an official member of the Activision Save the Chicken Foundation. Send us a picture of your TV screen showing your accomplishment, and we'll enroll you and send you a special membership emblem.
Okay, so this is the beginning of achievements. If you do that, you send that, and they sent you, and I'm kidding you not, a patch, an embroidered patch like you would get for like Boy Scouts or something like that, except for I think it's a bit more like a custom embroidered patch that's more like 2 inches in diameter or so.
Okay.
They did this for 34 titles in the era from 1981 to 83, and all of them had this sort of thing. Now, not every Atari game, but a lot of them, they had these things where you could get an achievement. Several good examples: Skiing, Sequest, Star Master, Laser Blast, Frostbite, Dragster, and they all had different requirements. Some of them it's just like, oh, get 75,000 points.
Sure.
Others are more like, oh, you need to get through these games in this, like in some of the racing games, or the Laser Blast, 100,000 points. Anyway, these patches, obviously, I think qualify as what we would call the origin of the video game achievement.
100% I would count that.
And so, to be fair, I'm doing a little bit of finagling because it wasn't this week in 1981 that it happened, but it was July 81, and this is July, so I'm going to say close enough. This is where we will plant our flag and say that 1981 now is the genesis of video game achievements. And I have been, ever since I discovered this, and by discovered, I mean, today I learned type discovery, I have been scheming and contemplating where my price points were and where the break-even point was for me to either have somebody make these patches or to get my own embroidery machine and make these my own darn self. I will let you know what I decide, but history will be informing my future. And if I do go that route,
Now I'm just envisioning people with like Boy Scout type like vests or like Girl Scout sashes, and they just have like video game patches all over them.
I mean, I would absolutely go out. I've already got a vest picked out.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But
oh my gosh, these are like legit. This picture that you just sent me, the Save the Chicken Foundation, is like peak 80s. I want this now. Thank you.
now that there's 2 of us, there might be enough demand now to actually make it happen. But yeah, that's what I had for video game history, the birth of achievements.
That's fantastic. Well, they definitely help keep me going on games that I'm like, I don't know. And then I get the first achievement or 2, and I'm like, okay, let's keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. The number of games I have gotten to the end because I was just like, well, achievement.
Yep. Gotta complete this area or else I don't get that achievement, for sure. Yeah. Although, Stardew achievements, one thing that my daughter mentioned that irritated her was that you can't get all of the Stardew achievements in one run.
Yeah.
Because one of them requires you to be a JoJa member. Yeah. And she was so mad. She's like, I'm never getting that achievement. And she used some very specific language to refer to Morris at the JoJa Mart.
I understand. Well, that's what I had for video game history. Metzgirl, over to you. We've got a little something deep to discuss, don't we?
We do indeed. So, there is a new game, well, old new game, that came back, actually.
Old new game?
Because back in 2014, that was the last time the college football game, NCAA type college level football game that they had. And it was a great game. It had been going for years, and the NCAA had decided that they were not going to allow them to make this video game anymore because they were using the players' likenesses and names without paying them. However, the NCAA guidelines also prevented college players from getting any form of recompense for their names and likenesses being used. So, for 10 years, this game had been in limbo because they couldn't figure out how to make it work. However, I believe it was last year or the year before, the NCAA changed the rules And now, college student athletes can get payment for their name and likeness. So they can do endorsements and they can do other things to make money that's not, I mean, they're not getting paid to play, but they're getting paid for these other things. So in this particular case, since that was opened back up to them, EA Sports went out and got licensing deals with all of the teams from all of the big colleges, and they got licensing deals to be able to pay these players to use their name and likeness on these games. And people are loving it. Like, there's so many YouTube videos and all these people freaking out because now their beloved game is back. Because they have, like, these really cool things where you can do, like, Path to Stardom, for instance, where you take your player all the way through your college career and then up into Madden. You can choose whatever Madden version you want to then continue your career into the pros.
Amazing.
Right? It's a huge deal. But do you know how much they are paying these students? Take a wild guess.
It's either going to be something that will be way too much or way not enough. And I'm going to lean, it's sports. I'm actually going to lean on the side of way not enough, and I'm going to say $150.
Well, that is how much the bundle of both Madden and the college football game would be. There's actually $600. So for every game you are in, if I'm understanding this correctly, which I didn't get to see a contract, I just had, a news article, but it's $600 and a copy of the game. Now, for the professional sports, the Madden game, they are able to go with the NFL as a whole, and they're paying the players like roughly $33,000 a year per game per year to have their likeness and all that in the game. And yet college kids only get $600 and a free copy of the game. What do you think about this?
Well, okay. What I will say is, for starters, the technological feat, although it's not really a feat, is it, of importing your favorite college character into the NFL is really cool. One of my favorite video games of all time, the Quest for Glory series, you would bring your character from one game into the next, and you would take all that hard work and that would go. And I loved that about the game series. So I love that this is a thing that will be doable for people. Love that. What do I think about the disparity in pay? I don't love it. That gap should not be quite so large. Obviously, you and I were not privy to the contracts, nor the discussions that happened, nor the discussions with NCAA. But I wonder if there is like a maximum that they will allow. After all, they've been standing firm on the no, you can't get a dime for a long time. I wonder if this is a function of they said, okay, you can get paid, but we won't let you make more than X. Although also we have the other incentives of we're not going to pay these snot-nosed college kids more than we absolutely have to. Maybe the NCAA provided the have to level, the top mark. I don't know. It's lots of things that we don't know, but it is kind of nonsense that there's that big of a difference between the two.
Right. And like some of the discussion I've seen, there are 11,000 players in the college football. So it's costing them like something like $6.5 million, even with just the $600. So from that standpoint, I can kind of understand, like, yeah, that's a lot of players. And if you're going to include them all, that's going to be a major outlay of capital to be able to get them all in your game. But at the same time, they sold... Okay, so they had, like, your base game and then, like, your slightly elevated game at $100. And they sold 2.2 million of those game passes because they got the game 3 days early. And so they sold the game, at least 2.2 million copies of it, for $100. like the math on that.
Yeah.
Combined with all of the EA players as well, because you kind of have to count some of that. For instance, my husband has a absolute love of college football, and he's very specifically signed up for Xbox Game Pass Xbox Game Pass to be able to play this game. Like, this game and Madden and, like, a handful of others. That he was like, well, I'm going to spend that money, so I might as well just sign up for the Game Pass. And then we've gotten to play other ridiculous games because of it. But I feel like college kids, just because they're college kids, it does not devalue their worth in this instance. And teaching people in general that because they're young, they're not as valuable in this kind of situation. Like, okay, yes, experience is a huge thing, yada yada, but like, these are people who, like, a good chunk of them got scholarships to go to college to play football. Like, this is what they're hoping their career path will be for most of them.
Yeah.
And a very, very small percentage of these people are going to actually get into professional football.
Yeah.
So, would it not make sense to help them at least, you know, pay for something? And like $600 when you're in college, that doesn't even cover a semester of books. Like,
oh yeah,
it's absolutely ridiculous.
It might cover a book,
right? Hopefully at least 3, but
well, one could hope. But I mean, have you seen publishers? Whew.
I know, they're ridiculous. But it's just one of those things where it's like, I can understand both sides of this idea of like, yeah, you don't want to pay them because they're student athletes and technically school should be first. But at the same time, they're making those colleges a heck of a lot of money, right? Like,
yeah.
They are bringing in all of the supporters and the fans and all of that good alumni money. And I don't know. I feel like we should be honoring our college athletes a little bit better than that.
I could hardly agree more. And Metzgirl, I mean, yeah, 100% on board. And I don't know what I could say better than that.
And that has been the topic of the week.
Well, now we're going to turn to a crowdfunding project that's trying to get off the ground. We call this Kick or Kickstart. Metzgirl, I have sent you a link to this Kickstarter project, and we're going to talk about some of the virtues and the vices. This is a little game called Cavescape, made by a studio. It's their first game, called Gargantua Games. And if I were to describe it, I would say think Terraria, but with a bit more emphasis on escaping the cave instead of digging into the underground for harvesting and crafting, but with the most important change, a grappling gun. So I know that Terraria has things kind of like a grappling gun, but this is a bit more, it's got a bit more mechanics to it, like vine swingish, if that sort of makes sense. But in the game, from what we can see, it looks like you have a certain quantity of harpoon grapples that you can shoot out, and you use that to traverse around an area, and then you need to land someplace to replenish your grappling hooks. You'll have things like a pickaxe, guns to fight off enemies, and things like that. A little bit more about about Gargantua. Garganta. It seems to be a lone developer, a programmer out of Germany. And what he's asking for is 15 euros or $17 approximately for a copy of the game on release. With the release date expected to be June of next year, of 2025. And as of right now, it's sitting well shy of its $10,000 goal. But it still does have 20 days left to go, and I think it's a nice pixel art, a charming style, and I love grappling hooks in video games, so this absolutely speaks to me. But Metzgirl, you've had a moment to have a look at it. Anything that stands out to you? Green flags, red flags?
It's got that Terraria style like artwork.
Yeah.
Which I don't particularly like. Like
For shame.
Sorry. I do enjoy the like more pixelated version, but when you're trying to make something that's like really detailed but pixelated, those just it doesn't strike me as well as like the more simplified kind of pixelations, if that makes any sense. Like, I prefer my 8-bit or my 16-bit, not this however many bits this is trying to emulate, you know what I mean? So like the artwork doesn't grab me, but it looks like if you just throw 7 pounds at them, you get your name in the credits. Like, all right, that's kind of cute. I always think those are kind of dumb though, when I'm like, oh look, there's all these people, I don't know any of them. Anyway, moving on. So it's kind of nice, but at the same time, And then, like, looking at, there hasn't been any updates. I don't know. It could be fun.
It could be. Allow me to throw one thing out there that I think might be a green flag, but also a red flag at the same time. It's supposed to be a multiplayer adventure. Now, does that mean couch co-op? Or does that mean, online? And I know we've got some feelings, which I didn't know at the time when I selected this. I did not know that we were going to hear about feelings about couch co-op.
Yeah.
But I am a couch co-op gamer, so I certainly, if it is couch co-op, something that encourages me.
Like... And I've seen Concerned Ape do an amazing job with couch co-op on Stardew. So, like, I don't think that being an independent individual making games necessarily negates your ability to do such things. However, without that clarification, like, honestly, almost any game that had couch co-op and was relatively family friendly at this point in my life would be amazing, right? Like, we don't really do football games as a family. Like, my husband does the football stuff. I don't care so much about it. But, like, I know that those are couch co-op. Like, I could totally try to figure out how to play Madden, for instance. But I don't know. It could be interesting. I don't think I would be interested in kickstarting it, because it does not seem like a distinct enough idea for it to be interesting for me.
Okay.
So I would say kick, personally.
Well, for me, I would love to say kickstart. However, I do have to keep to my old reliable tactic of saying that if you don't have a playable demo, that I'm just not ready to wager my own money on a product that may never come to fruition. A playable demo gives me that confidence. And sadly, we don't have a playable demo on this. And I would love to support a lone developer. I would love to be wrong about this. And, I wish him the best, but obviously I have to say kick as well. I hope if this project does not get completed, does not get kickstarted, I hope that what he takes from this is that he needs to do a little bit more refining, bring us a demo, and then relaunch it. And I think with a demo, I would 100% be not only saying kickstart, but I'd also be, I already bought it. So,
Right.
Kick for me as well.
Yeah, if they indicated that there was couch co-op, I would be all over it. But without that indication, it doesn't strike it for me. So
yeah, in the off chance that he's listening, let us know about that. And also, playable demo, my dude.
Yeah, that's the best way to get your people to believe in you is, oh yeah, this actually is playable. For sure.
Well, that has been Kick or Kickstart. Of course, we wish everybody the best, but we're going to have to let this one slide this time.
Oh, that's a hat. They don't have a chicken on their head. Okay.
You know, it's one of those things for me where it's like, I didn't see it until suddenly now it's all I can see.
Yup.
That's the headcanon now.
I think maybe it's supposed to be a candle. That would make sense. Anyway, sorry.
That's what this show's about.
Diversions.
Well, now we like to challenge ourselves, you know, stretch those nerdy muscles with a little nerd flex. A woo-hoo.
There it is.
A part where usually you, the listeners, stump us, the hosts. And of course, if anybody's quiet, we've got a handy test bank. Now, Metzgirl, I've got one question that was submitted in advance by a listener.
Ooh.
It was submitted last week as Wilhelm Shakespeare is passing along the love with a trivia question. But if you want to do, and we'll just alternate, you can do test bank. I'll do Wilhelm Shakespeare's, and then back to the test bank again.
Sure. Okay. Name the main character to whom Kazooie is a sidekick.
Oh, I know this one.
Do you?
Yeah.
Good, because I don't remember it.
So it's Banjo-Kazooie, and I believe the bear is Banjo, and the bird is Kazooie, but I believe the titular name, the title, is meant to be both their names.
Oh, I assumed it was Kazooie's first name. I've never played these. Cool. But yes, you are correct. It is Banjo.
Excellent. Okay. Well, now our question from Wilhelm Shakespeare. What is the name of the time-manipulating weapon used by the prince in Prince of Persia: Sands of Time?
Vortex Manipulator. I have no idea.
Ooh, that's good. Solid Doctor Who / Torchwood reference.
Correct.
But I do know this one because Prince of Persia: Sands of Time was an old favorite of mine. It's the Dagger of Time because it's a dagger and there's time. So yeah, very, very original.
Yes, so many good original names back in the day.
For sure. Well, I'm feeling pretty good about this. 2 out of 2, and I feel like we haven't even broken a sweat.
All right, well, this one might break us. In what country is the Shadow of Memories set? This is a Konami question.
I don't know as I've ever heard of Shadow of Memories. Yeah, so I'm just going to have to take a wild guess and say Russia.
All right, I'm going to say Japan.
Okay. What's the real answer?
Germany.
Germany.
I've also not heard of that game.
Well, we had a 1 in, 275 chance?
Somewhere around
so I don't feel so bad about getting it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't guess, Bangladesh or something, so...
True. Although I should have guessed Bali.
That is always a good guess, yes.
Well, either way, that's not bad. 2 out of 3, that ain't bad.
Woohoo! Go, Mech! You did all of that.
Oh no, Metzgirl. It literally could not have happened without you. So,
Sure.
go team.
Woo!
Well, all right. Well, then, now we just turn to a little bit of legalese.
Legalese.
I am not a lawyer. I just kind of play one on a podcast. And so, right, we're going to talk about this new Gamepass thing. I promised we were going to say something about it. And basically what we're going to say is that the FTC doesn't like that whole Gamepass price change. So in episode 310, we briefly touched on the price increase, and at that time, I shared with y'all for legalese how important it was for executive branch agencies, such as the FTC, to have deference from the court in determining how they carry out their mission statement.
Oh no. I already see where this is going.
It is almost impossible to overstate how important it is to a government agency doing its job to not have to be constantly second-guessed. Metzgirl, you can see where this is going to go.
The Chevron deference has been overturned by the Supreme Court.
Yep.
No.
And frankly, Microsoft would be stupid to not make a Chevron deference-related argument in court.
Uh-huh.
And there is a non-zero chance that they will win. And that went from a 0 chance to a non-zero chance. And Anyway, but we don't. Well, I could, and we probably should, go way more in depth on the Chevron case, as well as the fact patterns of the case that overturned it. We don't have that kind of time tonight.
Right.
So we'll save that for some other time. But what I do want to share is I want to share that the FTC, in response to the Game Pass price change, sent a letter to the appeals court because this merger, it was approved by the district court, but it's sitting on the appeals court docket. And the appeals court could say, you know what, Microsoft? You are getting way too close to a vertical monopoly in video games. You own the consoles. You own the publishers. You are the publishers. You own the developers. This is too close to monopoly power. And that's kind of what they're working on. But the FTC has been making notes to the appeals court ever since it's been on appeal, citing things, just basically highlighting things and being like, oh, hey, remember how at the district court Microsoft said that like Activision Blizzard would be so independent of Microsoft and we wouldn't be messing around with how they operate? Please note how Microsoft ordered Activision Blizzard to lay off 1,600 people.
Right.
This is an example of them doing exactly what they said they wouldn't do. And this change in the Game Pass price has prompted a new letter. The items that they highlight are the increased price of the Ultimate option has gone up 17%. Of course, they're removing the lower price option. The new lowest price tier is 80% more expensive.
Yeah.
And while they have added online play, they also removed day one releases from the new higher priced but lowest tier.
Right.
Just to give a little cyber nudge or digital push to kind of get you on that higher tier of subscription, if you will. And they also note that they did this immediately before the new Call of Duty drops, which was going to be a huge pull for people.
Right.
And so that was what the FTC said. And they said, hey, look, this is the type of stuff that we were talking about when we said that this was probably not going to be good for gamers. A degradation in quality because now they really know that they've got you where they want you. And the Microsoft response, and I think we're all gonna love this, went a little bit like this. Can you believe these guys? Now look, we promised that we weren't going to keep Call of Duty off of other consoles, and you know what? We didn't. We just waited till we knew it was going to come out to try and really incentivize people to upgrade their service and discontinue the old package. Nothing wrong with that. And you know what? Just because the FTC has caught us with a hand in one cookie jar, it wasn't the cookie jar that they kept pointing at the whole time in court. So, I mean, you should not look at this very closely. Please don't look at it closely. I mean, obviously they use a little bit different words, and they say stuff like, well, this is an attempt for them to reinvent their case on appeal. That's the type of words that they use. But really, let's be clear here. What's happened is Microsoft has stuck its hand in a cookie jar and been caught with their hand in a cookie jar. Just not the cookie jar that the FTC pointed to originally in original arguments, which I think we can all agree means they deserve a free pass, right?
No, not at all.
No,
but sure.
Metzgirl, you ask too much.
I know. I asked for monopolies not to own the entirety of our economy. Maybe that's too much to ask. I don't know.
Clearly it is. But I think it's always worth reflecting on the thesis statement of the legalese segment of the show. And that is that laws will always impact how we experience video games, especially as so much more of the art becomes inherently anchored to the companies, to the internet, and to everything else. And so, it's worth making... I mean, there's not much some of us can do unless a whole bunch of us are willing to go to be lawyers. But there are some things that we can do, like writing to, frankly, our old Congress people and letting them know that this kind of stuff happens and we don't like it. And I know it seems like a long shot, but, you gotta do something to stay sane. Like Janelle Monáe says, keep your mind clean and your hands dirty.
Well, my mind's in the gutter, so that's going to be a hard one for me, but I'll try.
We're going to get there. We're going to get there, Metzgirl. While that doesn't explain everything about what's going on with FTC and Microsoft and the Activision Blizzard merger, you can listen to episodes 249 and 249 and 271 for more on that. However, it does encapsulate this particular saga. And that's legalese for you today.
Well, I can't say uplifted.
Enraged?
Yeah, that's better. Mm-hmm. That's frustrating.
Yeah.
On many levels.
No, it absolutely is. And I mean, it's even, I'm going to cut this little bit, but like it's even a bit more disingenuous because like the FTC rightfully points out that, hey, in paragraph X, we talked about this would be the stuff that would happen.
Right.
And then you have this guy being like, they're trying to reinvent their case on appeal, and they only ever talked about us and our documented history of removing games from other platforms.
Right.
They only talked about us sticking our hands in that cookie jar again. So just because everybody was staring at us, watching us to do that, we decided to do different kinds of underhanded things. And that's why you have to let it go. Okay, thanks, bye.
Well, the other thing I
very frustrating.
didn't bring up was the cloud gaming piece of it, because that's their like, oh my gosh, it's so expensive to run, we have to charge you more. And it's just you're a big giant business and you can't figure out that the electricity you're going to need to run all of these servers to use cloud gaming is going to basically make it so that you can't afford to offer that service at the level you said you could offer it at. Sucks to suck, bruh. Sorry.
It's frustrating because it's like the levels of stupidity.
Right. Are you stupid?
In which case you should not be in control of our video games.
Uh-huh. Or are you doing this maliciously?
In which case you also shouldn't be in control of our video games.
Yeah. Basically. All of the above. Uh-huh.
Agreed.
Rawr.
Well, that leads us to the end of the show, and now we just need to share kind of the cool, nerdy things that we are into. Metzgirl, what you been watching, what you been playing?
A lot of YouTube. My children love to just peruse the YouTubes. And there's one particular maker channel that I have recently found, and that we all love to watch. Her name is Simone Yurts, and she started off making bad robots. And so it's just really dumb things like a robot that washes your hair. Does it actually? No, not at all. But it's really fun to see her like go through the process and to see how ridiculous it is at the end, right? And then she, like, as she goes through the years, because I went all the way back to, I don't know when she started her channel, but like I went all the way back to the beginning, and like to see her change and move to America and move to LA and move and do all of these big things. Like she's done a TED Talk. Like she's just an amazing person. And yeah, anyway, highly recommend her channel. We've been watching the crap out of it. But we've also been watching some Big Bang Theory, just kind of as, filler, turn your brain off. And then the other thing that the entire family gets in on is we found BattleBots on HBO Max, or sorry, just Max. And so it's the 2018 one, but I didn't have access to it at the time. So we are just all in cheering for Huge. Hopefully he can take out the whole competition. Probably won't. But, it's really fun for us to sit together and cheer on whatever bot we happen to like that evening. It's delightful. Oh, I've also been playing a couple of things. Like I said, we downloaded some weird things with the Gamepass, and apparently Gang Beasts was a game that was a really big deal for a while. I don't like it, but it's interesting to play around with. Of course, I'm always playing Stardew. That's just kind of like my go-to comfort game. And then in the real spaces, I've been playing Azul, which is a board game that my youngest really likes, and D&D, of course, because tabletop RPGs all the way. And then on the mobile space, there's this game called Egg Inc. that it's kind of like a not quite idle game, but darn close. Like you just have to tap to make your chickens hatch, and then they run, and it's addictive. I don't know why. It just is.
Awesome. I will have to give some of those. I don't know which ones, but I will have to give some of those a try.
Well, you'll just have to come over and play Azul with us.
Deal. I actually have a copy myself, so I'm coming to this party. Seasoned veteran.
Well, there we go. Excellent.
Fantastic. Well, I think I haven't been watching too frightfully much, but what I have been watching is the Dimension 20 Never Stop Blowing Up and having a good time.
Oh, I need to get into that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And as for playing, I'm nearly completed Baldur's Gate 3, but I haven't had too much time for video games lately, and this is a great problem to have, but because I've had visitors, people who've been coming to the house in the meat space, and that's been keeping me a little bit busy with entertaining. But what little time I have had, Baldur's Gate 3, almost at the end. I'm in the home stretch.
Yay! I'm sure you can do it.
Thank you. I believe in me at least as much as you believe in me, I hope.
I believe in you a whole lot, Mac.
Oh, thank you, Metzgirl. Well, thank you so much, Metzgirl, for coming out. Thank you to everybody who's listening. And a quick side note that by the time you're hearing this, you will probably have less than a week to vote in the podcast awards.
Go vote, go
Two
vote.
Nerds in a Pod, a video game podcast, is up for awards in the overall category, People's Choice, Games and Hobbies, Our Bread and Butter, and Best Black Hosted Podcast. And if you would be so kind, go to the podcast awards, sign up, jump through that hoops so they can keep the bots at bay, and then you're registered to vote and vote for us in those 3 categories. And it's a fantastic way to discover new podcasts if you need something, because they're all grouped by basically genres. Need some true crime? Find that new true crime podcast there. Vote for them, vote for us especially, please, and help us win a podcast award this year. So thanks for coming out. Thanks for being here. Metzgirl, especially thank you to you.
Always a pleasure.
Do you have any projects or anything you want to shout out before we say goodnight?
You can find me over on So Maddie Games every other Tuesday. We're off this week, obviously, which does interfere with watching your pod, so I feel a little bit weird pushing it. But anyway, I'm playing in an Eberron campaign, where currently we are traipsing about in the gloaming and going after some gnolls. Hopefully we can catch up to them.
Well, so to anybody who comes out on the usual Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Pacific, to watch the show as we record it live, thank you. And to those of you who only listen after the fact, I suppose you're free on Tuesdays to watch Metzgirl kick much butt over there in that Eberron campaign. But thank you.
Oh, that's twitch.tv. I didn't mention Twitch.
Oh,
sorry.
Yes, of course.
Twitch.tv/SoMaddieGames with a Z.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. And thank you to all of you who are listening. We will catch you, hopefully, next time. But until then, be excellent to each other and keep it nerdy. Good night.
Night.